Good afternoon. Welcome to the Shelter in Place, What You Need to Know panel, hosted by GV Wire and CMAC. I'm Councilman Mike Karbassi, filling in for Bill McEwen, who could unfortunately not make it tonight, to moderate our discussion surrounding the novel coronavirus and what it means for you and your family and businesses here in the Central Valley. With us this afternoon, we're honored to have Mayor Lee Brand, City Manager Wilma Kwan, TJ Miller, Emergency Services Coordinator, Don Golick, District Director for the Small Business Administration, Blake Conzel, Executive Director of the Fresno Regional Workforce Development Board, and City Attorney Doug Sloan. We will start off with some frequently asked questions from the GV Wire Facebook page. And just so you know, we are actually, if you notice, our panelists are observing social distancing guidelines, and we don't want to put anyone at risk while getting this information out to you. We're going to start off with Mayor Brand. Mayor Lee Brand, please tell us why you decided to have the city manager issue an emergency order calling the people of Fresno to shelter in place.
Okay, am I on? Good. As I said before, this was clearly the most important decision that I've ever made in my going on 12 years, both on city council and as mayor. I spent a lot of time, countless hours reviewing and debating this issue. I've read numerous articles, but fundamentally, we were going to uncharted waters. Just never had to make a decision when you could take different points of view. And I read and I respected all points of view, including there's another virus that had so many deaths, took so many people with it, didn't take that long. But this one clearly, as I saw this develop, was something that was very, very resilient, something that had the potential to exponentially reproduce. And the final decision was really, do you go out preemptively on this? And I knew it would be controversial, or do you wait? But the problem is, every single day you wait, potentially hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people could be affected. So for me, in the end, it was a decision for life. I didn't want to come back, because I made the decision to wait, and found out later I made a big mistake. You can't walk back that mistake. The worst thing that can happen is, Lee, you overreacted, and it cost some money, but nobody died. I would never want that on my conscience. I think I made what was the best decision for the city of Fresno.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your leadership on this. Now, the second question we have is, now that the governor has ordered the shelter in place for all of California, what does that mean to the people living and working in the city of Fresno?
That directed to me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the surface, not a lot, but because our order was voluntary and their order was mandatory. But in the end, it's going to be almost impossible to police and cover all these issues. So it was based on primarily at least 80% voluntary participation. The other thing was that initially, it was only the city of Fresno, the city of Clovis, and other neighboring cities, and Fresno County did not go along with us in our order. And I really like that the governor came out the following day. I think it provided relief for me that now all the cities and the county of Fresno all working together under the same restrictions, and shelter in place was the right move.
Thank you. Now, what does shelter in place mean, Mr. Mayor?
That means you're confined to your home except for doing those essential things you must do. Go to the pharmacy, go to the grocer, go to a medical appointment, or if you have a business that is an essential business like public safety or medical, you go to work. And at all times observing social distancing and trying to keep yourself as isolated as possible.
Great, thank you. Now we're going to move to City Manager Wilma Kwan. What businesses are allowed to stay open and who can go to work?
And that's a great question, and I think since the order has been signed, this is the majority of our calls that have come in are surrounding this question. So essential businesses that provide us with the tools and supplies necessary to carry out our daily lives are what businesses we're allowing to remain open. Non-essentials, particularly those that draw large crowds, are not allowed to stay open during this order. We have a list on our website, fresno.gov, that's updated twice a week at 4 o'clock on Tuesdays and Fridays. So our residents can go on and see which businesses apply, and if that list changes, it'll be updated on those times.
Great. So how long does this order last, City Manager?
So I want to clarify, the governor's order goes through April 7th at this point. Our city order goes through March 31st. So later this week, we're going to be reevaluating to see if we need to make a decision on extending our order.
Well, here's a big question we've been getting. Is this order mandatory for the residents of Fresno?
So while the city's order is actually voluntary, it's important to note that the governor's order is mandatory. Here in Fresno, the response has been overwhelmingly positive, and at this point, we don't see the need to penalize anybody. At this time, I want to be clear about that. But as this situation extends into next month, that may change.
Now, you know my family has a business, and we've been closed for about 11 days voluntarily before the order came in. But can you tell me, what does this also mean for businesses? Is it mandatory for them?
So the non-essential businesses, yes, it's mandatory. And again, I'm going to point you back to our website to see what list of those that applies to. Our code enforcement team that's run by our city attorney's office has been out canvassing businesses in the city to let them know if they are in fact in compliance with this order. And just like our residents, what we're seeing is an overwhelmingly positive response from our businesses as well.
Great. And again, residents can go to fresno.gov, and at the very top, they'll see a banner with information about COVID-19 and those lists of essential and non-essential businesses. So, TJ Miller, would you mind telling us, what is social distancing and where should it be practiced?
Yes, social distancing means you stay at least 6 feet away from everyone but those those people who you live in the same household with. For example, the people you're working with. If you're at the grocery store, if you're out taking care of those essential items, keep a 6-foot distance. This means no shaking hands, no hugging, not even fist bumps at this time. The reason is that scientists say 6 feet in this disease is primarily spread by respiratory droplets in the air from people coughing, sneezing, and breathing, and the 6-foot distance will protect us all.
So, can I leave my house and go to the grocery store or go to the pharmacy?
Yes, but please practice social distancing. Wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds before you leave the house. Use sanitizer in between stores, and then do the same thing, washing your hands for at least 20 seconds when you return home. Discard bags, take out containers, and wipe down any surfaces that may have been touched by another individual.
Right now, where can I get information about, what to do?
We have information on our website as well as the Fresno County Department of Health. If you go to www.fresno.gov, you'll find a list of information on our coronavirus link, and it'll also link you to the Fresno County Department of Public Health.
Great. Back to Mayor Lee Brand. So, Mayor Brand, what's the city doing to help people who can't work? Businesses like mine that are closed or operating at a much lower capacity. Can you tell us more about that?
I clearly, been a former business person myself, small business, understand the profound economic impact, not only on the employees that are in businesses affected, getting laid off, but the business owners themselves. And so there are both legislative matters at the state level and federal level to address both employees affected as well as the industries and the employers. Locally, we're talking closely with our partners at the EDC, the Small Business Administration, Workforce Investment Board, and others, trying to find solutions to help local business. Locally, we're not shutting off water or disposal for any business that's caught in a bind. But ultimately, what we need to do is to shorten the length of this stay-at-home shelter issue, as well as the entire overall virus crisis, and get people back to a normal life, get people back to work, get businesses back started again. So, again, most will be a partnership with all the local, including the Chamber of Commerce.
Great. Now, you mentioned the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Mayor. There is a business resource response team, and it's a partnership between the EDC and the Chamber, and you can call them at 559-476-2509. That's 559-476-2509. Now, on the subject of businesses, I'm going to ask City Attorney Doug Sloan to fill in on, what we've done through this city to make sure we're in compliance.
Yes. As far as the businesses shutting down?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and emphasize that if your business is not on the you may remain open list, then you may not remain open. Code enforcement has been out visiting businesses where there have been reports of businesses that are open that should not be. They're trying to educate first, but at this point, the ones that have been warned, they will be receiving fines if they fail to shut down as required.
Great, thank you. Now, for those of you watching, please submit your questions on the GV Wire stream on the Facebook page. That way we can get them answered by all these experts here today. Now, we're going to go next to Dawn Golick. I believe I pronounced your name wrong. Sorry about that. Thank you for being here. It means so much. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about the Small Business Administration? We actually have an office here in Fresno and some of the things that you're doing right now. I know you guys are working real hard to serve our small business community.
Administration is the federal government agency that serves the needs of small businesses. We recognize that many of our businesses, not only in Fresno, but in California and across the country, have been impacted by the coronavirus. So SBA has made available to all 58 counties in California under the State of California Disaster Declaration, SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan. This loan provides up to $2 million to small businesses with a low interest rate of 3.75% and terms that can be extended out to 30 years for businesses. And it really provides our businesses with an opportunity to get the working capital that they need to, for example, make payroll, pay other debts, and things that they would not otherwise be able to do because of the impact of the coronavirus. Businesses can visit the sba.gov/disaster website to get more information about this, to apply, and then once they apply, to track the status of their application. We also recognize, though, that there may be businesses who perhaps are not ready to do that or are looking for other opportunities to keep their business going. They may not be ready to apply for a loan. So through a network of trusted advisors, Sba Resource Partners, we have quite a few of them in Fresno, the SBDC, SCORE. We also have a Veterans Business Outreach Center and Women's Business Center that provide services in the San Joaquin Valley. Businesses can receive free consulting and assistance with looking at ways to keep their business going. Perhaps there's some additional revenue streams or changes that they can make to the way that they're doing business. For example, businesses that are now that are restaurants and are now offering takeout. Perhaps there's ways that they can market differently or do webinars. That is another service that the SBA makes available to business owners to help keep them going and keep them afloat in what we all know are very difficult times right now. So our SBA office can be reached either via phone, or we suggest that businesses who would like more information or need assistance can contact us at our website, Fresno, or email address, fresno@sba.gov. We're getting right back to businesses. We are answering calls. We're providing information on loan programs and other resources that can assist small businesses here in Fresno and throughout our 15-county San Joaquin Valley and Central Coast District.
Terrific. So kind of like here at the City of Fresno, it's all hands on deck at the SBA right here in Fresno. And that was fresno@sba.gov. It's so important to know that small businesses and business in general, they have options here, and we're lucky to have an office right here in our city. So we're going to move it next to Blake Consul, who is actually a District 2 resident. I'm very proud to be your councilman. And you were the executive director of the Workforce Development Board. Now, a lot of people may be getting displaced or worried about getting displaced as a result of our responsibility to put public health and safety first. Can you tell us about options for employers and employees?
Yes, so both at the state and the federal level, additional resources are being made available. It is still the case, though, that there are processes you have to go through in order to access those resources. Businesses who are anticipating layoffs are required to file something called a WARN notice. The governor has made the process for that a bit easier. It's good, though, because in noticing the employees through that process, they can be made aware of the resources that are available for them, unemployment insurance, continuation of health insurance, and things of that type. We are still open for business at Manchester Mall at our large site. Now, we obviously can't have off-the-street customers coming in and be in compliance with distancing orders. So we have 10 slots an hour that people can sign up for an appointment if they want to come in and actually talk to a live person. about what their opportunities are. And people wanting to get those appointment slots would call 230-4092. Sometimes in the day are fuller than others, but the person answering the phone will give you the first available slot that they have. Over and above that, we have a lot of services for businesses that are anticipating layoffs. And it's kind of a terra incognita for us. Normally we would host live seminars where we'd have groups of people in a room. We're now starting to do webinars. So this week is our first week for back-to-back webinars. Tuesday and Thursday of this week, we have webinars for business people who are anticipating downsizing to help them be in compliance with what the rules are. And then today and on Wednesday and Friday, we have additional webinars for employees that are affected by those layoffs. People who are interested in the webinar information would dial 490-7147, 490-7147. So again, just to stress to people, there are resources that are there. The federal government, the state government are authorizing really substantial increases in those resources. There are processes, though, that people have to go through to access them. And the best place to start is to call one of our numbers or to attend one of those webinars and get started on it, especially if you're being laid off from your job.
Great, thank you so much. It's great to know that you're adapting so quickly to this crisis and that we're going to be able, not only for our small businesses, but also for the employees that are displaced, you're going to have options as well. And again, that number was 490-7147 for businesses that want to learn about the webinars?
That is correct.
Terrific. Okay, so we did reach out to our elected officials statewide because, you know, if we're going to get through this time of emergency, it's going to take us, you know, going across party lines, working together, because we have one solid goal, and that's your public health and safety, and we need to be unified doing that. We had, you know, I spoke with Senator Melissa Hurtado. She was very supportive in her efforts in Sacramento, and also my state senator, Andreas Borges, who is also a District 2 resident. I tend to have a preference for District 2 folks, I guess. So he did send us a letter of support. I'm just going to paraphrase from his letter. He says, you know, thank you for the opportunity to provide an update. Senator Borges would also like to especially thank the local officials at the City of Fresno, County of Fresno, City of Clovis for their efforts to prevent the spread of COVID-19, as well as GV Wire, and Councilman Mike Karbassi for holding this forum. Thank you, Senator. Now, his office stands ready to assist and serve as a resource for those looking for up-to-date information. And last week, Senator Borges launched a web page with resources for small business, workers, veterans, nonprofits, and information regarding tax filing extensions. That's an important one. CDC resources, school closures, Fresno County court closures, and information on the governor's executive order. And that's from State Senator Andreas Borges, 8th District, California. Thank you, Senator. Now, I want to go back to our city attorney to talk about the anti-price gouging ordinance we passed. We've had code enforcement officers out there working with businesses and informing them of our policies, and you'll probably notice a notice at the doors that price gouging is now illegal for the course of the state of the emergency. City Attorney Sloan?
Yes, first of all, price gouging is during an emergency charging more than 10% above the price of an essential item prior to the beginning of the emergency. In this case, it was when it was declared by the governor on March 4th. So if somebody is now charging, for example, $5 for a bottle of water, and it was $4 on March 4th, and that would be price gouging. It was already illegal under state law, and under state law, it was a misdemeanor punishable by a fine of up to $10,000. State law would be enforced through the police department or the sheriff's office and the district attorney's office. They would probably be overwhelmed with a number of calls to investigate this. So the council passed an emergency ordinance making it also illegal under the Fresno Municipal Code. Under our code, it mirrors the state law in the sense that it's the same 10% difference restriction and provides for an administrative penalty of up to $10,000 per violation. It also requires that the businesses, these affected businesses, post posters in 4 different languages stating that it is illegal at their front entrance. The Code Enforcement Department, part of the City Attorney's Office, has posted, as of this morning, posters at 513 locations. There has been 1 citation issued for $10,000 for what we saw as egregious price gouging. There was 1 citation for $1,000 issued for the failure to post the posters as required. And we have investigated price gouging at 150 different locations. And again, except for that one case, all of the other businesses where we investigated, they have corrected what may have been a prior violation.
Terrific. All right. So we're going to move on to our city manager, Wilma Kwan, and our emergency services coordinator, TJ Miller. Now, what does a person do if they're feeling sick? What's the proper response?
TJ, I'll take that one. So we've been following the Centers for Disease Control daily to see if there's any updated guidelines for our residents and employees. And right now, CDC says just to stay home if you're sick, if possible. If your symptoms are mild, we strongly urge you just to call your doctor or healthcare provider and follow their advice. One thing we want to recommend is you should not drop into the hospital or urgent cares or your doctor's office if your symptoms are mild, because we were trying to save those critical appointments for those that are very ill in the community.
Okay, well, before we go on to our next question, I want to ask the mayor a question, because Mayor, you are, I won't say your age, but when you're over 65 like my dad, you're an at-risk population. What are you and your wife doing to stay safe at this time?
We're doing our best to follow the shelter-at-home emergency ordinance. It's not easy when you're used to getting around, but surprisingly, I've been staying home except for essential trips like going to the grocery store, the pharmacy, medical appointments. It's really important now, as you see other cities with similar ordinances in the entire state of California, that we follow as close as possible. And when we do go out, we're all allowed to go out and walk the dog or jog, is maintain social distances. I think this is where people are failing right now. And I think other cities are starting to cramp down on that. But I don't feel over 65 years old. But we are the vulnerable population. My brother, who's a few years older than me, has some other medical conditions. So I've told him, stay at home as much as possible. For everybody in Fresno, 65 and older, anybody, please. The sooner we can comply and bring the numbers down, the sooner we return to our normal lives.
Great. And thank you for being here today. Regardless whether you're working at home or you're here at City Hall, you've been working around the clock on this issue to make sure Fresno's safe. And that means a lot to me as a council member. Now, we're going to go back to our city manager and TJ. If you can tell us, for those that are over 65, and this is a question we get a lot, I have a lot of active seniors in my district, and they need groceries, but they don't feel safe going out in public. Can you tell us about some of the partnerships you've engaged in with outside organizations?
I'll let TJ handle that, but I want to make note that I have offered to get the mayor's groceries.
Very nice. We do know of 2 organizations that are working to help coordinate the delivery of groceries and essential items to the seniors. That is Bitwise Industries and Every Neighborhood Partnership. We do have those contact numbers that I'll provide for you, as well as their website addresses, and then we will post those on our webpage at fresno.gov on our coronavirus update page. In addition to that, our city team is also fielding calls and emails and coordinating the connectivity of those that want to give with those 2 agencies to help expedite this process. For Bitwise, you can contact Chris Rocha at 559-460-7809 or email groceries at bitwiseindustries.com. Every Neighborhood Partnership, contact Andrew File of Every Neighborhood Partnership at andrew@everyneighborhood.org. And once again, we'll have all of that information on our webpage on our coronavirus update.
Terrific. Okay. And, another question that we get a lot about the Fresno Police Department. And, are they, there's been talk about their stopping and citing people for violating this order. I mean, I was kind of surprised by that one, but can you tell us a little bit more about that, City Manager?
Sure, yeah, thank you. So I want to make it clear, the Fresno Police Department is not stopping people to ask what their shelter status is. However, they are still conducting traffic control to make sure our roads are safe. So it's that simple right now.
Got it. Plain and simple, and that's easy for folks to understand. So we have a question from a viewer, Valerie. She's saying that she's a resident and bus rider. Now, she pays for $48 a month for a bus pass. And what are we doing about people that use it for non-essential use and non-essential businesses? And this is for our city manager.
Yeah, thank you again. So I want to make it clear that we are asking our residents to be responsible and choosing to only do essential trips. Our bus drivers are not asking where our passengers are going, but so again, I would urge our residents to please stay at home unless it's essential work or essential needs for your home.
Great, so just observe safe practices. Now, I'm going to go back to our champions for business, Don and Blake, and for folks that work in those businesses that are being affected by this. So I had a couple of residents reach out, and for them, they may have a small business. You have a photography business, or you have a small retail store like a consignment store, or you're an employee, and they're really scared. So if there's one thing you can tell them to do for the SBA or for the Workforce Development Board, what would that be? Because there's so much information coming in, and this changes every day. We'll start with Don.
So there's a great deal of information on the SBA website, which is www.sba.gov. And I think one of the key resources for our small businesses right now are the Sba Resource Partners. Again, in Fresno, SCORE, and the Small Business Development Centers. They are working remotely. I've been in regular contact with them, and they are continuing to assist businesses with looking at what kind of options they have. Perhaps, again, there's ways that they can add additional services in order to be able to respond to some of the restrictions that they currently have. Maybe there's ways to make their businesses leaner and cut expenses right now. That assistance is free. There's no charge for that. They are providing that virtually via webinar, text, email, over the phone. So businesses can visit the SBA website to search for local resources to find the resource partner that's nearest to them and able to assist them.
Great. Blake?
For individuals who are unemployed or who are anticipating becoming unemployed, I would say the most important thing is that they have to begin the process to file for benefits. And one of the reasons that we're all paying into the UI system, it is an insurance system, is so that when things like this occur, the benefits can be triggered. I would also say, too, that we are actually getting requests for hiring. So in certain industries, especially in warehousing for certain companies, grocery stores, things where they're seeing a real uptick in demand or an increase in online orders or things of that type, we're getting inquiries about where qualified staff can be found. So I would say if you anticipate being laid off, or if you have been laid off, to call our number at 230-4092 and get in the loop, and we'll tell you what you're eligible for, get paperwork started. But it might be the case that somebody could work a series of part-time jobs. It's kind of iffy now because we don't know how long this crisis will be in total duration.
Right.
And so, if somebody would want to work, there are actually jobs that are available.
Now, that's really interesting. So as things are shifting, as we're responding to the crisis, you're saying that there are some industries where they're actually looking for more workers because they're in the essential business category, correct?
Correct, and for a lot of it, it's odder hours. Stores are restocking in the evening. Some of our large warehouses in town are working round the clock. Some businesses anticipating delivery of items have been told by suppliers that they're not able to deliver the items because there's an insufficient crew at warehouses. So those warehouses are now reaching out to us to say we need to find more people to process these increased orders. So I think it's an opportunity that will increase as the duration of this continues.
And you're also stepping up and serving in an essential business and providing a service for so many folks out there too. And you're working. That's great. Can we get that number one more time?
230-4092.
Fantastic. So this is the round robin portion, and it's a free-for-all. Whoever wants to volunteer and answer a question can. A number of residents have been buying bottled water in large quantities. Is this really necessary for the shelter at home, or is water supply really safe?
I'll take that one.
City Manager?
Yes, our water supply is absolutely safe. So I would recommend that our residents truly believe that whenever they turn on their tap that it's safe, and to stop the hoarding, if you will, of water bottles at their home.
And just so residents know, I, as a resident of Fresno, I've been drinking the water all my life, and I'm doing okay. We have great water here in Fresno. But also, what about things like toilet paper or flushables? People, go into the store and they may think that they need a big supply. I went to Target this morning. I was trying to get toilet paper for a friend. It really was a friend. And there's none to be found.
I would like to say that I went out this weekend as well and noticed, regardless of where I went to 2 stores. I was trying to just hit those places that I needed and then went home. And I was happy to see that a lot of our retailers are saying that there's a limit of one household product, like toilet paper or things of that nature, to one household. And so I think that's going to help curb some of the panic buying, if you will. And our DPU, Department of Public Utilities, is going to put out a message about making sure that we're only flushing things that should be flushed so that we don't have additional problems because of this.
Terrific. Now, this is a great question we get a lot of from, people that are renters and people that rent properties and landlords. So Destiny, she asks a question, and she's a renter. What about those who are not working and have to pay rent? Are they going to get eviction notices? Or are the management, are they going to give out, are the managers going to give out evictions? City attorney?
Yes. The city passed an emergency ordinance giving some renters some relief from the effects of the virus. And what it says is that if the tenant has experienced a loss of income as a result of the job being cut or cut hours and so forth, they cannot be evicted during this time. And during that time, from the day that they find out that they are being financially affected, they need to tell their landlord. And then within 7 days of telling the landlord, they need to provide some kind of documentation from their employer saying that their hours or whatever was cut. And so that they would not have, they would be then, their rent would be deferred and can be paid back over the 6-month time period after the emergency is over with. This local moratorium is for an initial 30 days, but could be extended also. This also applies to commercial tenants. A commercial tenant cannot be evicted if they've been shut down or their business has been affected by the virus for the time being, and whether they voluntarily shut down or they've been mandatorily required to shut down. They cannot be evicted as a result of their inability to pay rent during the emergency.
Great. So, it's not rent forgiveness, it's a deferment, correct?
Correct.
And you have 6 months to pay it back, but it doesn't mean you have 6 months not to pay rent. We're taking it month by month, correct?
Right. So if you missed one rent payment, you would have 30 days to make up that rent payment.
Got it. So next question from Amanda. While out on a social distance walk, Amanda said this past weekend, she said that she noticed many Fresno residents still gathering at city parks playing group sports. What's the city's plan for those who are not following the shelter-at-home guidelines?
I'll take this one. One effort that we've made is we have turned off all the field lights and the court lights at all of our public parks. Hopefully this will stop the folks from utilizing those areas during the evening hours. We're doing our best to remind people of social distancing, and we're going to be putting signs up in those areas just as a reminder, just in case they forget and they're in a different environment and forget the social distancing.
Okay. I've seen a lot of folks in my district, they're going for bike rides. They're staying separated, but they're bike riding and they're going for walks, and it's a great way to, get rid of that cabin fevers, to get out there a little bit, but carefully. Now, Anna Gonzalez asks a question, why are fax drivers not allowed to wear masks? They're exposed to COVID-19 as much as other people, yet they have to drive the general public without any kind of protection. Can you talk about that?
I can answer that question. So I appreciate that question. And what we've done, right away last week, we implemented social distancing on our buses. So we're really limiting the number of passengers that can get on each bus. That residents may have to wait a little bit of time for that next bus to come, but this is the best way that we can protect our drivers. And we're trying to also save those valuable masks for the medical community and those that may need it, more so than our...
Okay, so I have a follow-up question for you, City Manager. There have been some that have said that we're not coordinating with the county or other cities. I happen to know you've been doing that for a long time. Can you tell us about that and clear the air on that?
Yes, we have, and TJ can chime in as well, but I know I'm speaking to the county on a daily basis, and in some cases, including this past weekend, and in some cases more than once a day. And TJ's participating in update calls, and TJ, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Certainly. I receive an update. I'm on an update call every weekday, and we get all of the information, and if anything transpires over the weekend, they are connecting with me immediately. We are working in concert with them, and we are trying to help them help us fight this disease.
Now, one thing that might help the folks to know, and by the way, this communication's been going on for quite some time. It's not just this past week, correct?
That's
Absolutely.
Terrific. many may not know, but you guys are really coordinated upstairs, I think on the 3rd floor. Can you tell folks about the apparatus you guys have together to respond to the state of emergency?
Yeah, I'm gonna let you take this over because you've done a phenomenal job once we activated our EOC. So TJ, go right
Yeah,
ahead.
TJ, you're actually our parks director, but you've done so much more for this city, and you're really the guru right now, making sure we're ready to go.
Thank you. I am trying to coordinate the efforts, and it's been very successful thus far. We have activated the incident command system. We have put into place all of the structure in terms of how the FEMA guidelines are. We have an operations chief, a logistics chief. We have our finance chief, and we all have task force underneath us. And everything that comes through our team, we are working to protect not only our employees and ensure that we have a healthy work environment, but also make certain that we're able to deliver the essential functions to the community.
Okay, so I have another question for you, and this is from Marcy, and I know exactly who Marcy is because she lives in District 2. What about golf courses?
Our golf courses have been closed. They are on the list of areas that must be closed. And those are not easy decisions. It's very important to stay healthy and active during times like this, but we find some areas are very difficult to manage social distancing and keeping the area disinfected and clean and still in an operable fashion.
And I want to clarify too, or I should say add, that also includes our city-run golf course.
Correct.
Okay, we have a question from Tiffany. What if you don't drive? What are your options?
In terms of, I would assume.
Well, let's say, you shouldn't specify. Let's say, what if you don't drive and you need supplies? I think you mentioned some of the opportunities that every neighborhood partnership is doing and
Bitwise.
Bitwise as well.
Recommend our bus system.
Right. Okay, great. Now, we're going to move on. I'm going to ask a question of Mayor Brand. Now, Mayor Brand, I've just been a councilman since last August. You've been a councilman for 8 years and our mayor for almost 4 years now. This has never happened before, at least not as far as we can see. Yet you pretty much, earlier than a lot of folks, you and the council sprung into action to make sure we're safe. Can you tell us about that process a little bit more and what you thought and facing this?
Well, as I said earlier, this was an extremely difficult decision for me to make, and by far the most important one. Usually we debate and we talk about who gets their sidewalks repaired, what streets are repaired, who gets the new police station. This time, though, the stakes were much, much higher. We literally had to make a life and death decision. At the same time, we had to balance that knowing the profound economic impact this would have. And as I went forward, I knew this would be controversial, and I would probably get a lot of flack on it. But again, the council rallied, our staff and city manager were behind us. And I could say probably over 90% of the people who've responded to me by text, email, social media, phone call, have all been positive, and really proud of the city of Fresno and the citizens who've endured inconveniences, endured major economic impacts, and have the resiliency to continue on. And I can just say, if we all do our portion, our share, we'll get out of this as soon as possible. And Mike, thank you for all the work you've done as a new freshman council member, being really thrown from the pot to the fire. So you're doing really great. And I appreciate the cooperation and support of the city council.
You got it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, again, it's all hands on deck here at City Hall as well for this crisis. Going back to the city attorney, now residents may feel they see price gouging, or they may feel they see a business that's open that shouldn't be open. I've had business folks reach out to me because they feel like they've done the right thing and they've closed, but let's say a competitor decides to stay open. Who can they call? How can they report that?
Well, first of all, they can report it to the Code Enforcement Hotline, which is 621-8400. I think it might be helpful to elaborate a little bit. First of all, during last week, there were some changes from day to day as we were refining the list of who could stay open and who couldn't. Then we had the overlay of the governor's list, and again, that the governor's list, it may be in some senses more restrictive than the city's initially was. We have to follow the more restrictive of the two. So if the governor says this type of business cannot operate, we cannot then allow it. On the other hand, if the governor's list might allow it, the city here can still be more restrictive. And so people may have some confusion there. So if it's not allowed under either list, then they cannot operate. People also need to understand that there may be an aspect of a business that can operate, but not the remainder of the business. So somebody driving by might see them open and think they're breaking the law when that may not be the case. For example, auto dealerships. The service bays can be open, but the retail side cannot be open. And there may be other businesses like that. At this point, code enforcement has received reports of 111 businesses being open that shouldn't be. They respond to all of these. The majority of the cases, it's a matter of education, talking to the business owner, explaining that they can't be open based upon the recent orders. Despite that, code enforcement has issued cease and desist operating letters to 8 businesses. They've also enforced a shutdown order on 14 businesses. They've not yet issued citations. They go through the education process, trying to get voluntary cooperation before they start issuing citations. But at this point, the order's been in effect for coming up on a week, and code enforcement will start issuing citations for those that have been warned and failed to comply and shut down as required.
Great. Now, thank you, City Attorney. Now, a lot of folks may not be able to see this, but we actually have dozens and dozens of your city employees, those working under the City Attorney. They're out there every day trying to make sure we have compliance, trying to make sure, we're doing things right and kept safe. And you guys have been really great, and I want our city employees to know how much we value you, especially in this state of emergency. Now, we're going to go back to our city manager and TJ. This question is from Andrea. What will happen to people who don't stay in and shelter at home? Before you answer that question, there have been some very volatile words used. One of them is lockdown. Now, when I think of lockdown, I think of orange jumpsuits and bars and people telling you what you can and can't do and where to walk and where to go. But, my car's in my driveway. The street is still there, and I can drive, and I can come, to City Hall and do my job, or I can go to the grocery store. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So repeat the question. You said what happens if?
Are we on lockdown?
So again, it's voluntary compliance, and that has been received very well with our community, and we're hoping that that does not have to change. And so again, we're monitoring everything on a daily, if not hourly basis, and I'm really proud right now of our residents in our community who are taking this very seriously.
Right. So, we are counting on the community for their support at this time. Okay. So we're going to go back to our Mayor Brand. Follow-up question for you. What have you seen when you've gone out there? I'm sure people come up to you all the time because you're the mayor, and they'll give you feedback. I've seen some really nice things said on social media about you making a bold and firm decision. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Just things people have texted you, maybe business owners have shared with you.
Believe me, my phone has been ringing off the hook and buzzing for the last 3 or 4 days. What I've seen, though, has been very pleasant, that the spirit of the people in the city of Fresno to go along with this still voluntarily. The traffic is a lot less out there. Shopping centers are slowing down. And in some respects, reminds me of holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas, when you go out and you see very few cars out, most of the stores closed. And that's a good sign that people are complying. And I think as this goes on, I think most people are still, including myself, struggling on the social distancing, but I'm not shaking hands anymore. We're doing the prayer or
elbow
the
bump.
elbows, or just an acknowledgement. But we all need to keep working on that and do our part. And again, particularly us seniors over 65 years old, we're the most vulnerable population. But again, I'm just totally proud of all the people in the city of Fresno for what they're going through.
Yeah, we do a lot of those virtual elbow bumps from 6 feet away just to make sure. But, seniors are very highly valued, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for mentioning that. Now, you also, Mr. Mayor, may have heard about some very innovative ways businesses and restaurants have responded to the crisis. Does anybody want to share information about what they've seen out there as consumers? A lot of restaurants I know in my district, they've really streamlined. And now there's one restaurant that's offering like a pantry. So if you want to purchase, we have all these food suppliers that may have extra food. They're offering food for sale to the public. They may be, having delivery services now. I've seen a lot of that happening.
I think the private sector and the entrepreneurs, the people that risk everything when they go into business, have found innovative ways to stay alive. Restaurants, as you know, are limited to take in and take out. And that can be successful for some. Others, it's going to be a real struggle. But I think people will find different ways to legally, within our parameters, operate their business. And not only does it keep the business going, it keeps people employed. So the more we have of that, the more I encourage it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we're going to ask, remind folks that you can submit your questions. You can submit them on the Facebook page for GV Wire on this feed and the City of Fresno Facebook pages as well. I'm going to go to the city manager and ask a follow-up question. For folks, they may not realize how long this is going to last. Can you tell us about that process and how long, once again, the AO lasts and what happens if we go past that point?
So again, I want to reiterate, I'm going to get my dates here for a second. So the governor's order goes into effect, or goes through April 7th at this point, and ours goes through March 31st. We'll be reevaluating that this week to see if it needs to be extended. And at this point, it is really a day-by-day situation in which we're, again, following the health department's guidelines, the state's guidelines, and the CDC's guidelines.
Terrific. Now, I love this question. Charlotte asks, are there volunteer opportunities for those who want to help others who are at risk, such as grocery shopping?
There actually are. As I stated before, every neighborhood partnership and Bitwise are both coordinating those efforts. And you can also contact the City of Fresno at 311, and we will match people up with those opportunities. So if you have an organization and you want to volunteer, you can call us, as well as if you need services. So we're trying to help coordinate those efforts. You can either directly contact Bitwise or every neighborhood partnership, or you can go through 311. Either way, we'll match the services.
Great. I've had a lot of local groups, LifeBridge Community Church in my district, and they're ready to go. And I know they've called you and met and coordinated with you. So thank you so much for coordinating all that. Now, Tiffany asks a question. We may have kind of answered it, but I want to make sure we're clear on this. What if you don't drive and a family member that is not working drops you off? And if they get pulled over, will they get in trouble? Again, I don't think we're pulling anyone over, but she was saying that she works at an essential business. Her shift starts at 4 a.m., and is there a form to let law enforcement know? So she's under the impression that you're just going to get pulled over.
No, that is not the case. As I said earlier, our police department is doing business as normal. They are not pulling over anybody to check on shelter status or anything of that nature right now. And so I would just, again, urge everybody to follow the guidelines in which only go out for essential services.
Great. So Tiffany, you're safe. You're not going to get pulled over. Just make sure to follow the traffic laws. I mean, you still have to do that. So, great. Well, we're going to move on to the next portion, if I can find my notes. So, go back to Dawn one more time. Now, what are you hearing from the federal government? You did talk about quite a few things that are ever changing. I think the president was going to sign an order for California last night declaring this a disaster zone. Is there anything else we're waiting on? Do we have to ask folks to reach out to their federal elected officials? Is there anything in the pipeline that you can share with us? Anything we can do to help you with the SBA to get resources for folks right here in Fresno?
So currently, Fresno County is one of 58 counties in California which is covered under the disaster declaration that made SBA's economic injury disaster loans available in the city and county. I think it's really important that businesses are aware of this program. That's why I'm doing events like this, to make sure that people know. One of the questions that businesses will ask is, well, I don't know how long this is going to last. So, what does that mean if I take out a loan? And I think it's important for businesses to be aware that SBA also is granting 12 months of deferments on the payments on these loans. I think that's really important. So businesses can apply for an economic injury disaster loan. They can get the cash and the capital that they need to continue their operations. And then they would still have 12 months after the period that they took the loan to be able to start their repayment. And I think that's really important. As Mayor Brand said, our small businesses are entrepreneurs. They're really looking for opportunities to continue to pay their employees, to stay open, to continue to serve their customers. And this is a really valuable opportunity for them to get the kind of capital that they may need to stay afloat. And then again, we also have these trusted resource advisors, the Sba Resource Partners, that are able to sit down with businesses and look at ways that they might be able to streamline their operations, look at ways to provide services differently, over webinar or remotely, the businesses that are in the food industry that are doing takeout and delivery. So from the federal government level, there's a robust cadre of services that are available to businesses right now here in the city of Fresno, and we would encourage businesses to visit the SBA.gov website if they're interested in applying for a disaster loan, SBA.gov/disaster, where they can get information about how the loan works, what they can use it for regarding their business, and also be able to submit their application online.
Great. I had some calls come in on Monday where they tried doing that, but it wasn't quite done yet. But now they can. Now they can get, because we are a disaster zone in Fresno County, now they can apply. That's terrific. Now I have another question, and I think this is going to go to Blake. This is from Marcy again. Marcy says they had to close the doors of Bluff Point Golf Course. Should she have her employee file for unemployment? Are there going to be grants if they keep the employee, or any SBA loans, which I think Don just covered?
Yes, I would say if the person is unemployed, they've been let go from their job, they should file for unemployment. They could also, they're also eligible for retraining benefits. Of course, right now with schools being closed for in-person classes, that's curtailed quite a bit, but that will eventually lift too. So I would say yes, if a person's been let go, they should definitely file for UI.
Great. Now, I got a follow-up question. We talked earlier about how the things are changing in the economy, and maybe there are some folks that are out of work now, but maybe they can get a job like in a food supply store or in a grocery store now. So for that person that just tuned in, can we get that number one more time?
Sure. So, and one of my staff actually texted me because I've been using telephone numbers and not websites. I guess that makes me old too, Mr. Mayor. But you could go to the website www.fresnobsc, which stands for Business Service Center, fresnobsc.com, to get information about our webinars. But for unemployed individuals, 230-4092.
And then for those, will that include maybe some training for them that have been laid off? And so it'll basically be a navigating service, correct?
Correct, and our community partners in the education field at the community colleges, they have been absolutely stellar in trying to devise ways that people who are currently in training being funded by the Department of Labor, that training can continue. So online classes, outdoor classes, we have a forestry program going on right now. Training is continuing, albeit under different means.
Great. Okay, so another question maybe for Blake and for Don. So you hear about these things at the federal level, and maybe we want to talk about the difference between the local response and the federal response, because there's talk about $1,000 checks coming in and relief from the government, which is terrific. Which will help. Any relief will help at this time of need. But maybe maybe the mayor wants to talk about how what we really do at a local level, because one thing that, and this is for our at-risk population, Tip O'Neill, the former Speaker of the House, used to say is that all government's local, and a lot of the effect of what you see every day by government, whether it's public safety, waste management, your garbage pickups, your streets, that's all local government. And you want to talk a little bit about the local response and maybe what we need from our federal counterparts and those at the state level. So our role at the local level versus the federal and state level, what do we really need our federal government to do at this time to help our businesses and residents?
Earlier was we work closely with our legislators in the state and the federal government, Congress members and senators and assembly people. And we've worked with bills going through both Sacramento and Washington, D.C. A lot will directly address people that have lost their job through unemployment insurance, extended leave. The federal level also looking at one-time payments. So all that I think is needed. The key is keeping this period as short as possible. That's why I made the decision to take an aggressive step on the shelter at home. And we can get money coming in as best as possible, whether it be one-time or ongoing, and also aid businesses through the SBA loans and all the programs out there. We have to work together, but the hard work really will be at the state and federal level, and it's our job as local legislators to support that legislation.
Great. So we're getting close to the end here, and the main goal of this town hall was to be able to get information and kind of clear up some of the confusion out there. So I'm going to go around. We're going to start with our city manager. In 30 seconds, tell the people something that you really want them to know, what you want them to get out of this forum.
I would say first and foremost, I am really proud of our employees. They have stepped up in ways I never thought they would to help out with our community. So it makes me very proud to lead this team. On top of that, I'm really impressed by our community and the questions they've asked both businesses and residents who are doing everything they can to help slow the spread. So I would just say keep up that work, please.
Great. TJ?
Thank you. I'd like to share the 5 primary objectives of our Emergency Operations Center. And the first and foremost is to stop the spread of COVID-19 by following all of the recommendations of our public health departments. We're also striving to create a healthy work environment here for our folks that are working at City Hall and our other locations. And that is for one of our other goals. Our third goal is so that we are available to assist other agencies in the need. We think that could come sooner rather than later, and hopefully it won't. But if they do need to call on us, we want to be there, so we need to remain healthy and safe.
Terrific. Mayor Brand.
And
I'm sorry, TJ,
that's
I
okay.
cut you off. Go right ahead.
That's all right. We also want to make certain that we are still serving our community with the core and essential services, transportation, water, wastewater services, public safety. And then finally, but not last, or not least, is communication. We want to make certain that we're informing everybody on what they can do and how they can do their part to help us also meet these objectives.
Terrific. Thank you. Mayor Brand.
I want to thank our employees, from first responders to people, other bus drivers and water and disposal, all the workers of Fresno that are doing a great job. Again, the citizens of this town have demonstrated a tremendous resiliency. And my message would be, please follow the sheltered home as close as possible. I know it's really hard sometimes. We've all developed habits, but it's be key in our success is doing that, and also doing the social distancing. And the better we work as a city and cooperate, the sooner we're going to get there. Remain calm. We're all in this together. And I'm confident we'll get through this and we'll get back to normalcy. And I appreciate, again, the great spirit of the people of Fresno.
Thank you, Mayor Brand. Dawn, thank you again for being here.
Thank you. So I just want to say in closing for the small businesses in our community that the SBA is continuing to work remotely. All of our team are online, available to serve small businesses. If any businesses have questions on SBA programs that could assist them right now, they can send an email to fresno@sba.gov. We'll make sure that gets answered. I'm personally answering a lot of those. And there's a number of services and resources, as I previously mentioned, that could be of assistance to our community small businesses at this time.
Terrific. Blake?
I would encourage businesses that are being affected and individuals who are losing their jobs to take advantage of the time that they're going to have to find out what resources are available. So again, at the state and the federal level, very, very large sums of money are being rolled, so to speak, down to us. And to take advantage of this downtime to actually find out what is available for you. If you're a business person, I would go to fresnobsc.com. And then if you're unemployed, if you call 230-4092, find out what resources are available and make a plan.
That's great. Thank you so much. City Attorney Sloan?
Yes. The office has been answering a lot of questions from the public about legal issues and what they can and can't do. We're more than happy to do that, but almost all of these questions that are asked are covered in a number of documents that are on the city's website. City staff has done a fantastic job of compiling a lot of relevant information, and if people would simply go to fresno.gov, they would find documents that address almost all the questions that they might have.
Great. Now I want to thank all of our panelists for being here today and spending their time with us to inform the public about the options available to them. I want to also thank staff here at the City of Fresno, especially our Economic Development Department, Kelly Trevino, Lupe Perez. You know, half the panelists are here because of you guys. Thank you so much for coordinating that. Thanking CMAC and GV Wire. You know, the City of Fresno has been really working diligently behind the scenes to make sure for the public that we can get through this pandemic. And finally, I got the biggest thank you, CMAC, GV Wire. Thank you so much for working with my office to put together this informative event to let residents know what's going on and answer their questions directly and clear up some of the confusion. Thank you, everyone. Please observe social distancing, shelter in place, and be safe. Thank you.